And it's just, it's something scary to see, but we have to remember too, like as athletes, yes, we root for a team, we root for athletes, but their safety and health is still something that's important. They are real people with real things that happen to them.
All right, beautiful. All right, BVSA Sports Show, episode 12. I'm Joe Wanderling. We're back with Coach Taylor, making a second run at this, and Coach Joey, who I'm sure you guys have seen around the building, either coaching with us or training on his own. A lot to dive into today. We could touch on a little bit of baseball, a couple updates with Carlos Correa, new contract for Rafael Devers. We could definitely touch on where you guys are in the college football world. We could definitely touch on those two crazy games, New Year's Eve, TCU, Michigan, and Georgia, Ohio State, leading us to Monday's final, TCU and Georgia, and Week 18 of the NFL, heading into last week of the regular season, heading into playoffs, wildcard weekend next weekend. I think it would be crazy not to at least address and acknowledge what happened during the last NFL game, Monday night. Bill's safety, Damar Hamlin, first quarter collapsed, went into cardiac arrest. He was sent to the hospital. The game was temporarily suspended and then officially postponed. There's no word as to whether or not that game will be played. It's not our job to speculate, but we certainly had to address it, acknowledge it, kind of join everyone else in prayer and hope for the recovery. We certainly can talk about fact and what's out there, and NFL Network's Ian Rappaport sent out tweets this morning saying that Damar Hamlin's eyes are open as of last night. He's responsive. He was gripping the hands of those close to him, which is just overwhelmingly positive, awesome news to hear. Kind of makes what we do here okay and better, and to kind of talk about games and stuff that 3 days ago and 2 days ago and yesterday and partially today doesn't matter at all in comparison. So I'll kind of leave it at that. We'll jump into the games unless you guys have anything you want to add to it.
Yeah, just to build off that, first and foremost, obviously all of our thoughts and prayers go to the family, Damar Hamlin, and, it's just such an unprecedented thing that happened. You see players get injured, but nothing to that extent. And it's just something that, we all love sports. This is a sports talk show, and we love talking about sports, but when something like that happens, sports becomes secondary. The game becomes secondary. And to kind of get into that, it was cool to see both teams kind of come together and see what the first responders that were there, the trainers and the medical staff, they did a great job. And it's just, it's something scary to see, but we have to remember too, like as athletes, yes, we root for a team, we root for athletes, but their safety and health is still something that's important. They are real people with real things that happen to them. So I think, obviously we heard great news, and thoughts and prayers go out to him that he has a speedy recovery, but I think it was really cool to see everybody rally around what happened and see all the people reaching out, and it was just kind of turned a very bad situation to a better situation, if you could say. But I think it's just looking from the outside in, we have to remember that these guys do have lives outside of football or baseball or whatever, and athletes are there for entertainment, but they, like I said, they are real people, and things like that can happen, and when they do, sports are secondary. So that's kind of just what I wanted to say, and it's good news to hear that he's doing well.
Not only both teams, but the millions of dollars in donations to his foundation, all the teams, something as little as just saying their profile picture, prayers for Damar Hamlin, just something so little like that just goes a long way for everybody.
Absolutely. Rivalry is a beautiful thing in sports, and 100%. It's awesome to see without hesitation, right? There's the other teams in the Bills division, Patriots, Jets, Dolphins, everyone kind of has that three Hamlin Twitter logo right now, and just hearts and or money or thoughts and prayers and everything, just without hesitation. It's awful that such a near tragic thing had to happen to show that we all come together, but nonetheless, everyone comes together. So thoughts and prayers. Obviously, he's not out of the woods yet, but huge steps heard about last night into this morning. Hopefully more good coming out of it.
Absolutely.
So on to Sunday. Teams are practicing. Teams are preparing. The games are going to go on this weekend. Again, we have absolutely no idea if next weekend playoffs are going to happen or things are going to get pushed back. But again, no reason to speculate. We'll just go on with what's in front of us, and we can start with Joey, your Cowboys. And by the way, we have the whole NFC East minus an Eagle fan represented here. We got Commanders, Giants, Cowboys. So if you got any Eagle fans watching, you want to come partake and join the division. Saturday, Sunday is 2-game Saturday. The rest of the games are on Sunday. The whole NFC East plays on Sunday. Dallas is at Washington. The Giants are at the Eagles. All four teams are in very different places right now. Commanders eliminated. I'm not even going to bother with them, but rookie Sam Howell starting, which I think is pretty cool. See what they got. They're playing a Cowboys team that I think is in the most interesting position out of the four teams. Right? If we have it correctly, the Cowboys have the 1, 2, and 5 seeds, or the 3 spots they can land in.
Potentially,
the Eagles as well.
So
I think it's as simple as if the Eagles win, they're the 1 seed.
Yes.
Putting the Cowboys at 5, done deal.
Yep.
If the Eagles lose, which I personally don't see happening, playing at home against a Giants team that is locked in at the 6, playing
probably going to rest all of their starters. Saquon, Daniel Jones, probably all going to be down.
Yep.
I mean, it only makes sense.
I assume they might play a little bit just to continue with reps and feeling, because they've been playing pretty good football.
Yep.
But I don't see them with their seed not changing at all. I don't see them risking any big injuries or anything like that.
Who's the backup quarterback?
Tyrod Taylor, yeah.
So we got possible matchup of
starter in the NFL. He's done well.
Journeyman.
You never know.
Potentially got Tyrod Taylor going up against Gardner Minshew. I don't know what the latest is on Jalen Hurts.
He was limited Wednesday. He's starting to practice. They haven't really made a decision yet. But with the seeding on the line, I can't see him not playing if he's good to go.
Yeah, I think the Eagles, it's a no-brainer. Whoever's healthy needs to play. And it includes Jalen Hurts. Lock up the 1 seed, get a bye, get healthy, whatever it is. The Cowboys is so interesting to me because they need to win, they need the Eagles to lose, and they need the 49ers to lose home against a Arizona Cardinals team on their 4th quarterback. So to me, you risk those guys going out there, someone gets banged up, you're probably not getting the 1 seed. Obviously, you have a better chance at the 2 seed, which is huge, winning the division versus getting a wild card. But looking at it just for next week alone, I know it's Tom Brady, and we talked about it a little bit last week. The idea of the Cowboys getting the 5 and going to Tampa and playing an 8-8 Buccaneers team, right, versus potentially getting the 2 seed and playing a red-hot Aaron Rodgers. And now I get it to be a home game, but to me, I don't see any benefit of the Cowboys throwing their starters out there because too many pieces need to fall to get the 1 seed, which to me seems near impossible.
Well, like you said, also, their idea behind throwing everybody out there, yes, they have potential to get the 1 seed, but then again, if you're playing Brady in the playoffs, we all know he's spectacularly well known. He's arguably the GOAT, maybe not arguably, but I think it's just smarter for them to rest everybody because of all the scenarios that need to happen for them to win, to get the 1 seed. And then also, we also don't know what time the games are. So if the Eagles games and the Niners games are before Dallas plays, so say the Eagles win, why would Dallas play everybody?
I'm telling you, right? The Eagles play at 4, Cowboys play at 4, Niners play at 4.
So
everyone's playing at the same time.
Okay, so I feel like you kind of have to just to take the chance, and I mean that's how it felt.
I'm in a little different mindset from both of you guys on that. I think the Cowboys should play their guys. I mean, I think the difference in seeding can be huge. A home game versus an away game in Tampa, even though they're not playing well, it's Brady. I think the seeding is huge, and I think it's kind of a game where you start your guys, you go out there, and if the game's in hand, then you can kind of rest some guys. But I think you got to play your guys because in the NFL it's so hard to win, and if you can get a higher seed and potentially play at home for the first round, I think that's huge. And I think if you rest your guys, obviously all these other things need to happen, but if you can play well and then again see how the game goes, if the game's out of hand, then you can kind of make a choice. But if there's that seeding in that home game, I think that's huge. And once you get in the playoffs, you don't know, anything could happen. And I think being at home is such a huge thing, and versus playing away against Brady, where anything could happen. I think you got to play your guys. I've always been in that mindset, unless done deal, locked up the 1 seed weeks ago. Maybe that's a little different. But I think you got to play your guys, see how the game goes, and kind of manage it from there.
Well, here's the thing too. Everybody kind of knows that home games are very important. The Cowboys, historically win at home more often than they do on the road.
You said it,
like,
not me. I was
yeah.
going to bring it up.
No,
I didn't want to hurt your feelings.
No, listen, like that's like I mean, there are many Cowboys fans out there who do not accept that, but like.
But
there
that's
are
huge
some
for
of
the
them
Cowboys.
But exactly,
a team
like,
that
home games are huge.
has been good but hasn't had the success in the playoffs. A home game for them would be huge.
Yeah.
I think.
Absolutely.
So.
Yeah.
And not only that, but like you have the chance to either play. What is it? It's it'll be between the Buccaneers and the Eagles if they get the 5, and then either you play Jalen Hurts or Tom Brady at home. Like that's Tom Brady's 9-0 against the Cowboys, 8-0, 9-0.
Or did you say potentially the Packers? Who would they?
So if
they
the
win,
Packers get the 7, which I think if they win, they're in.
they have to win. Detroit,
they get the 2 seed, which like the Cowboys are much more likely to get the 2 than the 1.
Yeah.
So
still,
and we're talking 1 week, right? If the Cowboys have the aspirations like every team, but it's particularly the Cowboys who have their recent past in the playoffs, like it's Super Bowl or nothing for Jerry and that crew. So for 1 week, forget the matchup of if it's a road game against the Bucs or a home game against the Packers. Getting the 2 versus getting the 5, the path to the Super Bowl, it adds a couple of home games. So it's not even just round 1, but
at
even
the
round
end of
2
the day,
and so on.
we can talk about this, and like I'm sure you guys would agree, but we could talk about this as much as we want. You still got to win once you get in there. It's just now we're nitpicking.
That's another thing too. The Cowboys do not win in the playoffs. It stinks. I've never been alive for a Cowboys playoff win, let alone a Super Bowl. But
how do you feel if you rest those guys? Cowboys have been playing well. You rest those guys to get a week off. Some teams don't come back from that playing.
Well, that's
or staying
another thing
hot,
too. Like that's like a whole. So
some guys would rather keep playing, keep that energy, that momentum.
I think going into this weekend, say they become the 5, like it is what it is. I would much rather play Green Bay than play the Buccaneers. I think the Bucs have so many more weapons. I think Aaron Rodgers, hot take, Aaron Rodgers is a better quarterback than Tom Brady right now.
I agree with
and I honestly think that the Cowboys'
Skills-wise.
defense can hang with the Packers' offense a little more just because they don't have many veteran options. Like, we see Watson, who's improving a lot over the season. Like, he started out dropping passes left, and right now he's a prominent receiver.
The Buccaneers have a good defense.
Well,
it hasn't looked, people I don't think realize it hasn't looked as great this year, but part of that is the struggles of the offense and the turnovers. So they've had a lot of pressure put on them week to week. They're on the field a lot. They still have a very talented defense that's a little scary to go against. So.
Absolutely. So let's stay in the NFC. And with that Packers scenario, the Packers right now, they are win and in. They are the night game at home Sunday night against the Lions, which will become a winner gets in scenario if the Seahawks lose to the Rams at 4, which
is
they
tough,
shouldn't.
Because if the Seahawks win, then that Detroit has no
Detroit
chance,
is playing
which is
for
tough.
nothing.
Yeah.
Other than playing spoiler to a rival
and
that
to
they
be
have.
above 500
Right.
for the first time in a while.
So, to me, it seems like it's a no-brainer. Like, how crazy is it that we talked all season about quarterbacks like Daniel Jones and Geno Smith and now Brock Purdy and Taylor Heineke? They're getting into the playoffs. All these new faces, Mike White, right?
Yeah.
A lot of those teams have fallen off. They're not going to be in the postseason. And instead, it's Brady and probably Aaron Rodgers back in the postseason. So for me, it's a no-brainer. I don't care what Seattle does. They should win that game, although Baker has shown that Rams team can play a little bit. I think Green Bay wins. I think they lock in that 7 seed. I mean, there's no other scenario, which is a shame because I really wanted to see that Detroit feisty Lions team in the playoffs.
I will say, though, I think Jared Goff is one of the hottest quarterbacks in the NFL right now. If you look at his numbers and what he's been doing with that team, he has had statistically a better year than a lot of quarterbacks this year. And I've always been kind of a fan of him just because he brought the Rams to the Super Bowl and they kind of just, tossed him aside, which unfortunately that happens. But he has been on a tear the last few weeks. So I think that's going to be a really, really good game.
Like you said, he kind of proved himself, right? Like Matthew Stafford, Jared Goff trade happens.
Yeah.
Stafford takes the Rams, wins the Super Bowl. Jared Goff, on the other hand, everybody was like, "Oh, he's going to the Lions."
last place team.
It's done.
Went to the last place team, and now they're one win away from 9-8. They'd finish.
Yeah. And they also have some really good young talent. Like,
and
you
they beat some good teams. They beat some good teams.
You have a backfield, Swift, Williams. Like, you have guys like that, and you can build a team like that.
Yeah.
Like, they're going to be scary good. And I know we're going to talk about the Jaguars eventually. The Jaguars are going to be a scary team in a couple years too. Like,
they could be a scary team right now, and that's a great little transition into the AFC side. So thanks for that. Let's go.
Nice.
That Titans-Jaguars game. Last week, the games meant nothing. So last Thursday, the Titans played your Cowboys.
Which is such a weird thing.
Third-string quarterbacks, backup running backs, like they just didn't care.
My boy Julius Chestnut.
Jaguars are 8-8. Titans are 7-9. They're in Jacksonville.
Yeah, started for them. Julius Chestnut from Sacred Heart.
Wow.
Yeah, started for them.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. The Titans are still going with Joshua Dobbs at quarterback, and I'm saying going with as in like they had a choice. It sounds like Tannehill and Malik Willis. I don't know the extent of their injuries or what's going on there, but they signed Mike Glennon to their practice squad. Maybe he gets a couple snaps. And talk about a journeyman.
The Giants fan is just that hurts.
This game it was supposed to be such a cool thing, right? The AFC South and the NFC South have been a joke all year. Last week we kind of got a pretty cool game. Bucks and Panthers was wild. This weekend looks like it's going to be just a blowout. I think Jacksonville beat Houston last week, kind of like 38-6 or 10. It's going to be a similar story this week. And
also took the Cowboys from 40 to like 37 or whatever it was. Took them to OT, and then Dak threw a nice little pick to Jacksonville's defense for pick 6. But
so assuming they steamroll over Tennessee, to your point about being dangerous or being whatever word you want to throw in there, they're going to get that 4 seed and get a home game against possibly a Ravens team with Tyler Huntley or a Lamar Jackson not 100%.
He missed practice again this week. I saw it today. His 13th practice in a row. He wasn't even late. He just didn't practice. So, he's a talented guy.
I think Huntley go, and then I think you see Jacksonville beat the Ravens in the playoffs, and Trevor Lawrence.
I think it's very possible, yeah.
So I think the only other piece to that is that I think the Chargers can still jump the Ravens in seeding and that first wild card spot, 5th spot overall. So I think that would be a much more difficult matchup for the Jaguars. One, I think they could still kind of.
I think they could
Justin
still take
Herbert's
advantage.
first career.
It's going to be a fun weekend.
It's
going to be a fun weekend for sure.
Absolutely. So I think we're all in agreement. Jaguars we're almost looking past this game, which hopefully they're not doing because they lose and this whole thing comes crashing down, and we get to see Joshua Dobbs host a playoff game, which everyone I'm sure wants to watch. Staying in the AFC, going down a little bit further in the standings, the Patriots have the 7th spot, the last wild card spot. They're going into Buffalo, which winning in for New England.
Okay.
Obviously, no one knows what Bills team they're going to get. And then right below them, you have the Jets playing at the Dolphins, who are right behind New England. Their win and Patriots loss, they get in. They're on their 3rd-string quarterback.
Where the Jets have no chance of being.
Where the Jets have no chance, but they're going to play spoiler to a division rival. And then the last piece, which I haven't said a word about this team in weeks that we've been on this show, Cleveland at Pittsburgh. The Steelers come out of nowhere. Yeah. And now if they win and New England loses to that Bills team, which they should, and the Dolphins lose to that Jets team, which in my opinion they should, the Steelers get in, which I think would be, out of those 3 teams, I don't like the Patriots. I don't like their style of play. It's not exciting football to me.
I don't think they have anybody who can compete with, if you play a 1 or 2, I don't think they have anybody.
I just feel like that's always the case with the Patriots. No matter what, even when Brady was there, it's a down year.
Yeah, but it's Mac Jones. It's not Tom Brady.
Right. But what was it, 4 weeks ago, they weren't even close to getting in the playoffs. Now they win and they're potentially in.
So it's ugly, their style of play. It works for them. Whatever the case may be, out of those 3 teams, right? If Tua's healthy, that offense, I said it last week, needs to be in the playoffs. That would be super exciting. 100%. Right? You're going up against that big 3 at the top. Yeah. Whoever it is that they play, Kansas City, Buffalo, Cincinnati, whoever they play in the first round, I'd rather see Miami. But if Tua's not healthy, I don't want to see Teddy Bridgewater. I don't want to see Skylar Thompson. Right? I'd love to see Kenny Pickett go play, a Cincinnati team. That's a division game, and anything can happen. So I'm going on the air, bold. Maybe it's bold, maybe it's not. I think Pittsburgh finds a way in. They've shot their way up the standings. Najee Harris is running like a fiend. Kenny Pickett's kind of figured it out a little bit. Mike Tomlin's a great coach. I think it's the best option out of those 3, assuming Tua is not healthy.
I think, going off of your point on the Dolphins, I would love to see Tua healthy. Can we address, his health has been a big question. We don't know whether he's had as many concussions as he actually did. Nobody knows. But if he's healthy, that offense is unreal. Top 5, maybe top 7 offense in the league. Hands down. They have some of the 2 best receivers in the league. Him slinging it out against, who would they play? Would it be
Being in the top 3, it could be Mahomes, could be Josh Allen, could be Joe Burrow.
So those offense going up against another top 3 offense, that's
you have to remember, what have they lost though? 5 in a row, and I know there's been different quarterbacks, but 5 in a row is a tough stretch. And I have no issues with their offense. I think it's the defense that's got to keep them in games. I think their offense can compete with anybody in the league. It's just kind of figuring it out as a team together.
Yeah,
So.
I mean, realistically, I don't think any of these three teams are going anywhere in the playoffs. Obviously,
there it is.
right on cue. I think one of the top three teams that we just talked about, they're going to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. I know wild card teams and dark horses come out every year, it seems like. I think the Chargers are that team in the AFC, if there is one, out of all the wild cards.
They've changed my mind a lot, yeah.
And that might be by default because of the Ravens situation and these three teams we just mentioned. NFC, it seems pretty clear that it's either Dallas or Aaron Rodgers if he gets in.
Yeah.
No offense to your Giants.
It's all right.
So
it's all right. That's where we like to be.
It is, not to go back to your team for a second, it is going to be fun to see, or fortunate for you guys if you get Minnesota.
And that's what we were
San
talking.
Francisco in the first round.
We were talking about this off air yesterday. I don't, as a Giant fan, I would much rather play a struggling Vikings team right now that they had a chance to beat and lost on a 61-yard field goal. Versus that the talent that San Francisco has on offense and their defense is just. I know they had, it was a tough game last week with the Raiders, but I think a couple guys weren't playing complete snap counts. I think guys were on limited roles, but I would not want to go up against that defense. But at the end of the day, if we want to go on a run, you're going to have to face them at some point. So it doesn't matter, but if I had a choice, I'd love to get another crack at the Vikings.
I think your path is definitely Minnesota, and then I think Philly. I'd rather play Philly division game over San Fran.
As a Giants fan, it's fun, because it's been a tough, 4 or 5 years. It was just fun to go on that ride this season, and it's kind of all my expectations have been beat. So now it's just kind of play football, have fun, and just see what happens. As a fan, it's a little bit of a stress-free game because nobody expects us to win. Nobody expected us to get more than 4 wins this year. So it's going to be fun as a fan, and we'll see what happens. So
yeah, absolutely. That kind of does it for our NFL talk, the last little piece. And you want to talk about things that have not mattered the last 3 days, but Monday night's game was supposed to be the finishing touches on a fantasy football season for most.
Yeah.
Taylor, you were in it. Again, scores don't matter, but we'll just acknowledge you as co-champion, yeah. I believe I was up around 25 points. He had a couple guys to go. So it wasn't looking too good for me. But with the way this season has been, like I said, Justin Jefferson had 1 catch last week. Who would have thought that? Yeah. Because he's been breaking records left and right. You don't know what's going to happen, but it was fun. So we're co-winners right now. We're debating on doing something fun to kind of figure out who's the overall winner. So I guess stay tuned for that, and we'll keep you updated with how we kind of do something fun to figure out who wins the league. Yeah, absolutely. We'll stick with football. We'll go to the college side real quick. I don't know if I can't really grasp how much or how little college football fans you guys are. I would imagine you guys were at least watching New Year's Eve. Two of the greatest games I've seen. They're fun to watch, I think. And I thought it was really cool that, and maybe some people beg to differ depending on the group you were with for New Year's Eve, but Ohio State's game-winning kick pretty much was going off as the ball was dropping at midnight. So I thought that was pretty cool. Guys and girls who maybe care a little bit less about the game telling you to go change back to the channels. 2 TVs were going, Hopefully you had the 2 TV setups so you could watch both. And those that were backing Ohio State, those that were backing Georgia, 2 very different starts to your 2023. So that was pretty cool to see. And that leads to Monday's game, TCU, Georgia. I'd love to hear your thoughts, but my immediate thought is I just really hope we didn't see like TCU's best or like their final. That they just knocked
that's
off
the thing. Like it might not be a fluke, like that kind of thing. So like
they're roll over and lose by 3 touchdowns.
So like Michigan's offense, like everyone knows, was such a good offense in college football. 13-0, obviously. One of my buddies I used to train here with, Cornelius, he's an unreal receiver. Probably going to get drafted next year, hopefully. But I think we just saw like a TCU team who figured it out. Who's literally, they came out before the game and were like, okay, we're going to stop Michigan's run game. Michigan had, I think, less than 100 yards rushing that day. And they had a ton passing. But then again, TCU's defense showed up. Their safeties were all over the place. And their offense obviously showed up too. And, like, if we get that TCU team against Georgia, I think they give Georgia a run for their money. I agree with some of that. I mean, I thought TCU didn't have a chance. Obviously, they proved me wrong. And they played well. They came out to play. But I think TCU played well, but I think that was more of a Michigan team having their worst game of the year and not playing their best football at the worst time.
because I believe they had 3 turnovers or 4 turnovers all year, 13 points off that. They had 3 or 4 turnovers in that one game, and their best running back, I forget his name, wasn't playing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they got stopped 3 or 4 times inside the 10
Yep.
and had to either get field goals or turned it over. I think as well as TCU played, and I give them a lot of credit, Michigan was still in that game. And I think with 3 turnovers and not scoring from inside the 10 2 out of 4 times, I think Michigan just played their worst game of the year, unfortunately. And I think TCU is a good team, but they were very opportunistic on the turnovers. But if Georgia plays clean football and doesn't turn the ball over, I can't see that type of game happening again. I think TCU will play a hard game. I think it'll be closer than people think, but I just can't see that happening again unless they can get Georgia to turn the ball over. So I think Michigan just kind of blew it, unfortunately.
Georgia, I don't think, played their best football against Ohio State. I think Ohio State's offense ran the table in the first half. I mean, they scored, 21 or 28 points in the first half, and then all of a sudden, Georgia's quarterback turned it on and went on a little run. But I think if Georgia plays the football that we've seen them play all year and holds the 1 seed, I think they're going to run away with a championship.
Yeah.
And I think it's better than Ohio State's a better team than TCU.
Yeah, and I think that was a little bit of a wake-up call for Georgia because they've played some good teams this year, don't get me wrong, but I think that they haven't played a team like Ohio State. So I think that was kind of them, kind of saying, oh, somebody's kind of, Ohio State was really good this year. I don't think they played that caliber of team, so I think that was a little bit of a wake-up call, and I think they'll be ready for TCU.
Yeah, it's cool regardless that last year we saw Cincinnati put up kind of a dud when they were that outsider team that finally got a chance in the top 4, right? It wasn't Clemson, Ohio State, Bama, Georgia. So TCU gets that shot this year, and there's a lot of talk about
it's cool
Bama
to see different teams in there, and I think next year they're doing, is it 6 teams? Or
next couple years. 12, I believe.
Which I think that's going to be awesome because you'll see some fun games, some teams that might not – people think shouldn't be there but might surprise people. So I think that'll be fine. So it's good for football.
So if that happened this year, you see teams like USC, you see teams like Tulane that comes out
and
as the 15
I like it
seed,
because as a team, if you lose 1 or maybe 2 games, then you're out of contention. You know, like Alabama would have gotten in if we had the playoff. That would have been fun to see.
Yeah.
But I think that gives teams a chance for, if you lose 1 game, like let's say, you lose your first game of the season, you're playing whoever, your season's not over. Obviously they play for bowl games, but in the grand scheme of getting to the end in the national championship, I think that'll be so cool to see that teams won't get so deflated when they lose 1 game, because it's hard to win football games.
Yeah,
so.
And so I think next couple of years at least it helps with the committee, and it adds to the point of Cincinnati's and TCU's and whoever else, Pac-12 teams, they can go in and they compete. TCU
what was
competed.
it a couple of years ago? UCF.
Yep. Exactly, same thing. So it'll be cool to see next couple of years, and then like you said, I think 2026 they go to 12, which is going to be awesome to watch. And like you said, those now instead of it's 1-2 losses, it could be 3, even as much as 4, and then they get hot and they go on a run. So interesting to see. Final Monday night. Last piece, we got a couple minutes. Carlos Correa update and Rafael Devers contract. You guys are both Yankee fans, right?
Yeah,
Mets fan.
Oh, sorry, 2 Mets and a Yankee. But we'll start with Devers. 11 years, $331 million. My biggest piece is the overall landscape of the Red Sox. What are we doing? Right? They don't want to give it to Betts. They let Bogarts go.
I think they just were put in a place where they had to sign somebody. Can't keep letting their most talented players go.
Yeah.
A lot of money being thrown around this offseason.
Well, that also puts Devers in a spot where they're not going to win for at least another 4 to 5 years. They're
You'll see.
Multiple,
we'll see.
In multiple projected standings for the AL East, they're in last place in multiple ones, and the Orioles have so many young guys, and they're.
I just think they wanted to show the fans a little bit too. Listen, we're going to try to keep this guy and build around him, but they've gotten rid of some guys that if they still had if you look back at that team from 3-4 years ago, it's crazy.
With Mookie, Benintendi, all those guys.
So they obviously dropped the ball and they lost the Betts trade. Forget the money that they didn't want to give them, but also the pieces they got aren't exactly working out so well in comparison. And then Bogart's leaving, so they kept the best one of the 3 in my opinion. I love Devers, but at the same time, I just don't know what we're doing. They're not in win now mode. I don't think they're going to be in win now mode for a couple of years now.
They're also looking at their shortstop in Myers, the young kid who's he's really, really good. He was their number 1 or first round draft pick a couple of years ago. So I guess they're looking to him and hey, you're going to be up here in a couple of years. You're going to be the guy and kind of take over from there.
Devers is the guy. They're going to build around him now. So
Yeah. Last piece, Carlos Correa. They're talking drastic difference in his contract.
Yeah.
You saw him with the shirt on that he's going to work with his kid.
Yeah,
I love
yeah.
New York or whatever it was.
I think he wants to be in New York. I think they're gonna do everything they can, because now if 2 deals fall through because of the medical issues, then I think it's a bad look on him and maybe Boris, for if you think about it, because now where does he go? Is a third team going to sign him, have the same issues? So I think they're really going to try to work it out, and I know they're speaking with the MLB about certain clauses that they want to put in the contract. So I think they're going to get it done. I think it's going to be very different from what you said, but I think they're going to get it done, because I don't think they can, if you look at Correa and Boris, they don't want to have this move on to a third team now,
Right.
because then that's a tough spot.
I was kind of looking at it from Correa's perspective too. Like, he tried to test the waters last year with free agency, got somewhat of a contract with like $30-something million a year with the Twins.
Yep.
Opted out after his first year. Then he saw all these big name shortstops, Bogarts, Turner, like these guys getting these massive contracts. Like, hey, like I may as well test it too. And like he gets one deal possibly done with the Giants, then all of a sudden 3M drops a ball, is going to the Mets.
Yeah.
And then same thing, $350 million contract for 12 years, and then drops the ball again. So like in his head, like I kind of feel bad at the same time. Like, he's been relatively healthy since this whole leg injury happened, and then all of a sudden teams are just so worried about it. And I mean, you have to make it a 5 to 6 year deal. You have to.
And it's just
Take a lot
seeing
of
more
money
of
off.
the business side of baseball. So
Yeah. At this point, if he wants to be in New York, the idea of getting a 10, 11, 12-year deal right now,
Probably
for a
out the
third
window.
team,
Yeah,
is not
probably out the
happening.
window.
yeah,
So hopefully this time next week when we're back, we'll have a Correa deal. We'll have a college football playoff winner.
Yeah.
And hopefully we have some NFL playoff matchups to dive into. So that kind of does it for us. Thanks for watching. Like, follow, subscribe. I'm trying to do my best Anthony Conte impression.
And if you guys want us to cover any topics or go over things that are happening in the sports world, leave a comment and let us know, and we'll try to cover it. So
Absolutely.
thank you guys
Awesome.
for watching.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.